E54, thank you so much for being here today. First of all, what did you think of the verdict?
Well, I supported the verdict. I agree with it.
And was there anything in the evidence, in the testimony, that really came out at you?
I think the things that I focused on when I was doing my own deliberation was the non-emergency phone call. I did pick up on some things out of Rachel Jeantel's testimony, Trayvon Martin's phone records, or her phone records when they were talking.
Of course, Rachel Jeantel is the friend that Trayvon Martin was talking to right before the shooting on the cell phone.
Correct. Yep. Yep. And the ear witness, I call them ear witnesses, the ones that heard the noises, which way the noises were going. They helped me fill a gap. And then a couple of the eyewitnesses. And I think the one thing that stands out the most is the injuries to Mr. Zimmerman.
What did you think of neighbor John Good's testimony? Talked about MMA style, ground and pound.
Yeah, I mean, what I got from that was just the motions that he saw. Whether it was ground and pound or MMA, it wasn't relevant to me. It was just the motions and the fact that who he saw on top and who he thought was on the bottom. I think those were the more relevant features of his testimony to me. Did you think Rachel Jeantel was credible? I think, well, I did have some, I did pick up some credible information from her, and so yeah, I do think she was credible.
And whose voice do you think was on the 911 call?
Personally, I can't tell you who it was. But from the witnesses' testimonies and from the injuries to George Zimmerman, I believe it to be it.
You believe that it was George Zimmerman's
Yes.
voice? And so you would have voted not guilty?
Correct.
What did you think of B37, the juror who spoke out? Did you see that interview?
I did, yeah. To be honest with you, I was surprised that anybody could come out that quickly and talk about this. I know that when I got done and was released and was asked about what I thought, I didn't even know where to start. I didn't even know what to say. So I was a little surprised that she came out as quickly as she did. I'm not surprised that it might have been that was her that came out, but I just think that was a little bit too soon.
And what's your reaction to all the protests, demonstrations, and talks of a civil rights complaint now?
I just don't understand the civil rights complaint. I didn't see the evidence there that in the courtroom that would make anybody believe there's a civil rights case for this. The protest, the people are going to be angry no matter what the verdict was, and there's nothing we can do about that. So I just hope that they're peaceful and they just do it, as calmly, as quiet, and as best they can. And there's not destruction and not hatred and not a lot of anger towards the jurors. I
know from the news perspective, we talked about some of the key witnesses, whether it be John Good or Rachel Jeantel. Who to you were the key witnesses?
Well, I think one key witness to me was George Zimmerman during the non-emergency call. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, there was direct evidence of what he was doing and how he was communicating, I think that was a key to his mentality at the time. There was a lot of emphasis on whether he was showing ill will, spite, or hatred, and I didn't see that. There was no evidence to support that in that phone call.
So you didn't think he was profiling?
So I didn't think he was profiling. No, there's no evidence to support that. I think he characterized Trayvon Martin as a suspected, or as a suspicious character, suspicious person, and that was all.
And then what else was there?
Another key thing for me was the tying Rachel Jeantel's testimony to when she was on the phone with Trayvon, and you can't really you can't say what she was saying when, except for when the phone disconnected, and then she called back and she talked to him again. At that point, Trayvon said he had lost a man, and he was at where his father was staying. He was at that place. At the same time of that happening, George Zimmerman had only just gotten out of his car about 25, 30 seconds. So he was still up at the T. And Trayvon, according to Jeantel's, Rachel's testimony, would have been down the other end of the buildings at that point. So somehow those two got back together up at the top of the T. And we don't know how that happened, but in all likelihood, in my mind, even if George Zimmerman had walked down to where Trayvon was, they both walked back up to the T. So that would have implied that Trayvon had followed George Zimmerman back up. If George Zimmerman didn't walk down there, then Trayvon walked back up to the T somehow. Because then the ear witnesses heard the noises up there. Most of the ear witnesses, I believe one of them said the noises went the other direction. But the majority of them had the noises coming from the top of the T down to the trunk, where John Good saw him laying on the ground, or Trayvon on top of George Zimmerman. And I believe that John Good said that it was I believe that it was Zimmerman because he had the color of the jacket that he had. So tying all those together and the injuries that George Zimmerman had, that's where I came to my conclusion that it was justifiable.
B37 criticized Zimmerman for not going back to his car. What do you have to say about that?
I was fine with that. I mean, I think at the time he was trying to keep an observation and communicate to the police, and was not being confrontational. He had the right to be where he was, and I don't think he had to go back to his car.
When Dr. Val took the stand, the medical examiner, what was going through your mind?
I was trying to figure out what was going on with, a guy with his expertise. I understand that they're not going to be able to remember their autopsies from 2 years ago or a year ago, every one of their autopsies that they do. I would think that he would have prepared himself better with the notes from his autopsy rather than spending time researching why people can't remember things, because that wasn't relevant. So I was confused about all that with him. That's probably what stands out in my mind with him.
Were there other witnesses that confused you just as much?
I should remember this. I'm just drawing a blank now.
How about that DNA? Going through all the DNA, was that tough to follow?
It was interesting. It was one of those things I was focused on. I was looking for the evidence. I'm looking for what's there. So no, it wasn't hard to follow that for me.
Was it tough to look at some of the pictures of Trayvon Martin's body, listening to those 911 calls of the screaming of whether it was him or Zimmerman?
For me, it wasn't. I was just focused on what I was hearing and what I was seeing, and not what it was, not who it was.
Did you ever look over at the families when all that was going on?
No.
Purposely?
Yes.
What was the importance of that?
Out of respect for them, it was hard enough for them to see it, I had no right to be looking at seeing how they were reacting.
And E54 hopes people accept this not guilty verdict, calling it the right one. He doesn't think George Zimmerman was profiling Trayvon Martin. Right?
When you heard the verdict, what was going through your mind and how did it make you feel?
Well, what went through my mind was, my first impression was that I thought that it was an accurate verdict, and the next thing that went through my mind was how hard I know that the ladies worked to reach that verdict, and you know, that they were proud of him for looking at the evidence and doing what they had to do to come up with the verdict.
And what was your reaction when you found out that you were an alternate?
Disappointed. I had a feeling that might have been an alternate, but because of where I was sitting. But I would have liked to have been in the room with the other 5 ladies, and had a chance to talk about it. And you know, you couldn't talk about it the whole time we were together, and it would have been a great time to be able to sit down and get their thoughts and what did they see, what did I see, you know, to compare and deliberate. And I wish I had an opportunity, but.
In the very beginning, when I watched, it seems as though you were tired, but then as days went on, your energy picked up.
I was tired the first day, and I don't know why. Maybe it's just because it was the opening statements. But I really focused on the witnesses, the questionings. You know, I really wanted to make sure that I didn't miss anything. You know, that was you know, that could have made a difference between which way the verdict went. You know, it's just the energy picks up when as the trial's going on. So, but the end of the week still got a little bit draining, but.
Did you ever get bored, lose your focus?
No, there was just too much going on there to do that. I never got bored with that.
What did you do when you were excused?
Immediately after, yeah, I went home and kissed my wife, and then sat down and watched the trial until it was over. I wanted to be there the whole time while they were deliberating, and be there for them, and just watched it. So. And
what did you think of all the coverage and after that too?
Expected. You know, it was you know, it was a big national event, and didn't surprise me one bit all the coverage that was there. You know, it's interesting. You just don't. But when you're in the jury, though, you're not exposed to any of that. You didn't see any of that. There was no feeling at all what was going on out there, until I got out, until I walked out and got home and saw it on TV.
And what did you think of the 6 women on the jury?
I'm proud as heck of those six women. I'm proud of the other two that I served with. You know, I'd do anything for them. They're like sisters to me, and you know, I have all respect in the role for them.
So did they argue with each other? I mean, you got ladies together. You know,
I was surprised. There really wasn't any argument. There was a lot of camaraderie you know, while we were together. And, you know, might have been some things, maybe a little bit here and there, but you know, nothing. There was no really bickering and no arguing going on. And were there ever times where you guys were just drained and said, "I can't do this anymore," and you picked each other up? No. I think I say no. We never got the sense that anybody was drained and couldn't do it. But I think we always knew that everybody was there to pick you up if anything did happen. But I don't think I saw anybody feel that way. I felt that you had a presence up there almost as the protector. Tell me about that. Well, you know, it's, I guess maybe because I was the big guy, you know. I was not only the only guy too, but, you know, they're ladies to me, and I don't want anything to happen to them. You know, it's just the way I am. You know, so, you know, yeah, I would look out for them any way I had to. What was it like to be sequestered, especially with the family? It was tough being away from your family. The good thing with it was the way that they handled it with visits. We were able to have visits every Sunday, and when we had 4th of July off, we got a visit on that day as well. What's your thoughts on Al Sharpton wanting to get rid of the Stand Your Ground law and people wanting to boycott Florida now? You know, I just don't understand that. You know, actually, I didn't. It's the first I've heard about Al Sharpton wanting to Stand Your Ground law. Stand Your Ground law. You know, we didn't do anything wrong. You know, the jury did what they were asked to do, and that was to interpret the law that they were given, and review the evidence, and make a decision based on that. They did everything they're asked to do and they're supposed to do, and I don't understand that. You know, and stand your ground. To me, I don't think stand your ground was an issue in this case. It was justifiable abuse of deadly force, but I don't think it's the same thing.